Alrighty then. So far, there's no smoke coming out of the computer, so I think we're okay. Good afternoon. This is the Nantucket Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, Thursday, 4 o'clock, September the 29th. We're meeting in a hybrid format as allowed by the state at 131 Pleasant Street trailer, with the availability for folks to attend via Zoom. The committee will conduct roll calls on all votes. Zoom participants are asked to identify themselves, which you all have with their name on the screen. We'll ask all Zoom participants to mute themselves, or mute the devices. You can talk to yourself. Mute your devices unless addressing the committee. We'll start with a roll call for today. Alan Reinhardt.
Here.
Lee Saperstein.
Here.
Rick Atherton.
Here.
Matt Lowell.
Here.
Nelson Eldridge.
Here.
Ed Gillum.
Here.
And Bill Breeder. Joining us via Zoom is Patrick Reed, our new transportation planner. We have Will from the DPW. And joining us from the far east, it looks like, is Ian Golding. So thanks those that decided to join us electronically. First thing on the agenda is public comment of anything not on the public agenda. So we'll look around the hordes of folks that are here from the public and ask if anybody has anything they wish to bring up. Seeing none, move on to item 2, which is the approval of minutes from August 16th, 2022. We have a motion to accept those. Motion made by Rick.
No,
Oh.
I just have one, sorry,
Okay, hang on.
maybe someone else does. And Lee, you know, I love the minutes, but on page 3, so I just happened to read these, look again.
Yeah.
Item 3, the next to the last line, it says in an apparent first. And maybe I said that, I don't know if I did, it implies that's the first time there's been a chapter 91 ad in the paper, and that's not the case. I think they're quite regular. At least that's what how I interpreted the sentence. So I think we should just strike that. In an apparent first. Are you with me, Lee?
I am. I haven't opened up the minutes, but I've taken out page 3. What line do you recall?
Yeah, we can do it later if you want. No, but I don't think it's impactful in any way, except it's just not quite true.
We're going to call it an editorial change, so it doesn't even need a vote. I accept it.
Thank you. Okay, other than that, I'm good. Maybe someone else has a
Anybody
comment.
else have any? Seeing none, do we have an approval of the?
Okay, Ed, who moved?
Ed, did you move?
I was gonna second, but he all of a sudden it
You're now
changed.
moving.
But now I'll move. Okay.
And seconded by Alan. Roll call vote. Alan Reinhardt. Aye. Lee Saperstein.
Aye.
Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Matt Wolf.
Aye.
Nelson Eldridge.
Aye.
Ed Gillum.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Ken Bogrand is not available today, so item 3 we will not be doing, which is an update on road, sidewalk, taking projects and encroachment.
Bill,
Yes, yes.
with Patrick Reed on board, do we have a time for him, or do we give him item 3?
I was going to slide right into that. Are you looking in my head? Yeah.
No, I've just been dealing with this kind of stuff for a long time.
Item 3A is introduction of our new transportation planner. And you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, Patrick, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Patrick Reed. I know a couple folks on the call are on the meeting here already. Happy to be working for the town. I started in March and have enjoyed sort of getting up to speed and meeting folks and learning about your different roles and what the different commissions do. This is the first opportunity I've had to kind of listen in on the right-of-way committee here. So I appreciate the opportunity and thanks for the invite. Last thing I guess I would say is if any of you ever have a question for me or feel like I can support you in any way, always feel free to reach out. I'm happy to take a call or email and try to help you.
Patrick, are you P. Reed at nantucket-ma.gov?
That's right.
I'll put that in the minutes.
Great. Thank you.
Then we got him.
Thank you for introducing yourself. Have you been able to access any of the documents concerning the roads and right of ways? Specifically some projects that were discussed and were in limbo, and we've due to a vacancy in their position, we haven't had any updates on those things for quite some time. And we just talked about one of them the other day, well, last month, and that was an update on the sidewalk move or addition on Pleasant Street down to Williams. That was one of them. And then everybody else has any that want to chime in so we can start up at least some of the most important ones that we had. Alan?
Yeah, we put in a request to the town to take Franklin Street. This was a number of months ago. And I haven't heard back from Erica as to whether anything is whether that project is advancing or not. So again, Franklin Street,
It's not even a street. Where did we end up on Stone Alley?
oh, and that's right, Stone Alley was the other request we had for taking. Stone Alley goes from Orange Street down to Union Street. It's a narrow little path, cobblestone path that goes down. And we had recommended to the town to take both of those, Franklin Street and the
Stone Alley.
Stone Alley, that's.
Yeah.
And any word on those?
You might not know about the Stone Alley one or Franklin.
Or Franklin, yeah.
Yeah, I think at this time, I don't have updates for you on those. I am more familiar with that Pleasant Street project. I've been working with Steve Arsenault, DPW director, to pick that contract up again. I know we've got some DPW folks on the call, so they're probably working on that as well. But yeah, I have less familiarity with Stone and Franklin. Looking forward to learning about it. I definitely have used your resources online, particularly the compendium of streets that kind of shows what is public and when it was taken. That's been really helpful for me. I think that's great that you guys have put that list together because it's hard to have sort of an ongoing list of records, and you all have done a great job with that.
Patrick, when you say the Pleasant Street project, can we be more definitive? Because town meeting authorized funding for redoing Pleasant Street from Main to Silver. But our request was for the sidewalk basically in front of 57 Pleasant Street from Williams up to, help me out, guys.
Gardner Perry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gardner Perry Lane.
Yeah, so the project that Beta, the contractor, has been working on, sort of a larger project doing a concept for, which we as staff have actually been talking about how to proceed, because they've had this concept in the works now for a bit. I think it dates back to 2021. It says on the plan set there, but the limits of disturbance are William Street between Pleasant and Sparks. So there'd be a sidewalk in scope on the, I got to get myself oriented here, on the western side of the street or northern side of the street, depending on how you kind of look at it. And then there are also places on Pleasant and Sparks. So there's a concept to improve the sidewalk on Sparks for shared use path. And then on Pleasant, improving the sidewalk and commercial area there and extending it to the extent possible all the way up to Five Corners. So that's the limits of that particular project. I can't say definitively right now where we'll go with it because we're still working through that with the DPW and also the contractor beta. But I think from most recent conversations, we're kind of thinking about how we will phase that out and break that out. The other thing to be aware of is there's some sewer and water projects for those particular street segments. So ideally we could sync everything up, right? If we were to break it out into phases, which would probably be a more practical way of trying to tackle some of these projects if they involve, impacts to the roadway. So that's where we're on that one. But yeah, I don't really know much about Franklin and Stone, so I'd be interested in hearing some background on it at some point. And if not today, I can catch up with one of you all at a different point.
Patrick, Ed Gillimer. Question, where are you on Pleasant Street, specifically with the homeowner that owns the private homeowner that owns the property the sidewalk will have to traverse? That one piece, that's a major piece of linkage there.
Yeah, the project is solely at the concept phase.
Okay.
And so we're still figuring out what the degree of impacts would be for the concept that's being explored. And it's not even solidified yet. I mean, we provided some comments to the contractor. So after that, what will happen is the contractor will come back to us with a better plan and we'll have a better understanding of, what easements might be necessary if we want to proceed.
I'm trying to think of it. So I'm gonna do that.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just make
Matt?
a couple, Patrick, as far as talk to Andrew about Stone Alley, there was a plan to draw plans for the taking. Like, we didn't even get to that, so I believe Don Bracken was working on that, or was supposed to be. I'm not sure exactly what happened with this. This may have been one of those things with Rob that kind of got sort of removed somehow because they didn't want to make a controversy of this. There was some encroachments, there was something to do with the house getting worked on. This was a while ago, way before you were here. So you might just get with him to find out, get an up-to-date, so you know everything about that. And then Franklin Street, as I recall, isn't that like one of those roads like Meter Street that never got taken and never became, it's sort of just there, kind of by itself.
Everybody always thought it
It's
was
one of those roads, you're gonna find this out, Patrick, we had another life here in Nantucket long ago. And that's one of those goofy ones, I think, like Meter Street, it never was a real road, it just even had a sign, and it wasn't a real road. I believe Franklin is one of them, but I'm not 100% positive of that, but I think so.
Though it goes past the cemetery there. I think it was a road, but I don't know.
It was, no, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah, I know.
is it private, is it public, is it one of those mysterious
It
ones,
was
like
assumed to be public.
Gardner Road, it's
assumed
not a
to be-
real road.
It's assumed to be
Quit.
public, but we found out that it became private.
Yeah.
It really was private.
So, yeah, that's right, oh, it became private, that's for sure.
That's
But that's one of those ones that sneaky parking and not a new house, but a new owner on the corner that put the curb out further or something. So that's what brought all this stuff up. And it is definitely a road that the town needs to get cleaned up, especially because of the cemetery and that existing little hill there that you have to go look at it.
Near New Lane.
And that's a critical point because the town is in a butter to this road.
Correct.
Right.
Historic about it. You really want to get down to it.
And the town also maintained that road for a number of
Right,
years,
exactly.
assuming that it was
Yeah,
public.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they found out that they didn't own it. And so,
And the other thing is most of the property owners are still locals along there on the other side. So now's the time to fix it. You know,
Stone Alley was being surveyed. I don't know whether it was Bracken or not. I'll assume it was. There is actually a homeowner on the corner of Stone Alley and Union Street that came to our
Ryan
meeting,
Union,
but now she no longer owns the house. They sold the house.
that's a fancy new old house now.
So there we go. So there's a new player in town that doesn't even know probably knows nothing about this, so I just thought I'd throw that out there.
They'll find out.
I thought I'd throw that out there.
So thanks for listening to this, Patrick, and if you could, start with those two things to get back to us. Instead of us bombing you with a gazillion other things that are hanging out there in limbo. Everybody else have-
If I can just
Go
add,
right ahead.
add to that, Erica Mooney is the one who would probably have the most information about the status of those two, Franklin Street and Stone Alley. So be worth asking Erica about it.
Bill and as chair and Patrick, I'm going to send Patrick directly a copy of our memorandum asking for consideration on the 6 ways with sidewalks, 4 of which we recognize had some planning effort made. That'll help him to find whatever paperwork there is. I'm also going to send him a copy of our Excel spreadsheet on takings. We've had some success because the town got behind Amelia Drive, Boulevard, and several others that had been on the list. But Franklin and Stone Alley, I think, are still. My recollection, because it's not in my notes, but my recollection is that Stone Alley was considered by the select board and then postponed, so that it's out there in limbo. And I'm not sure what they decided was the marker for bringing it back on the table. But Stone Alley has been considered by the select board. And so, as Alan suggests, Erica Mooney might have a better recollection.
Thank you, Lee.
Housekeeping.
So at any time, Patrick, if, do you have well, you can get it off the website, but if you need contact info of board members or whatever, just let us know and we'll get it to you. And just think of it as a standing invitation. We'll include you on our agendas so that you know what's up, and we'll try to give you a heads up instead of submarining you by all of a sudden you see your name on the agenda, so.
Great, thank you.
Did we also have a letter to the select board about the Stone Alley and Franklin Street that maybe we should share with him as well? I mean, can we do that as well?
I think that's.
Andrew
what-
will definitely be able to get him up to speed on Stone Alley. I'm not sure about Franklin,
Yeah,
as
I'm
far
not
as
sure.
that, a little bit of a different scenario there.
Sure, yeah.
But he knows about Stone Alley and he'll be able to explain all that and get back to us. For sure. It's completely different
Yeah,
sort of circumstances were around that.
So Patrick, you're, unless you have a full dance guide, you're welcome to stay, or you can go up and do whatever you have to do, but we want to thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll hang out for a little bit to just kind of get a sense of what you all are working on.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a report back to this committee. We had a visit last meeting from Lynn Boski, president of the Wisconsin Civic Association, concerning the Wisconsin Bluff Walk. I admitted, much to my chagrin, that although born and raised here, I had never walked the bluff, so.
Wow, thanks for mullet.
What an admission.
He's the moment.
God,
Earl.
So,
Look,
my
exactly
ancestors
8 hours.
rolled over in the grave when they found that out, but anyway.
So,
You're from the West End.
I made amends to that and went out and actually did a site walk with Lynn and ended up meeting some of the abutters and the neighbors. And basically the concerns, there were several concerns that Lynn brought forward. But things such as dogs off leash wandering on the private property, yoga mats being set up on private property overlooking the footpath at 6:30 in the
that's
morning.
a new one. We haven't had that before.
Public
Just like a
exit
maze.
points ignored and
Electric
visitors
bike.
exiting where convenient across public property. They also, through Lynn, had some suggested possible improvements, better signage, posting a QR code that provides a broad range of information, restricting wheeled vehicles on the footpaths, no tour groups, and some sort of enforcement of rules, town provided or privately funded. Those are the main points that there was others also, and Lynn will get a chance to just expound on that. So, like I said, I did this sidewalk, confirmed with those that I met, that they had the same concerns. I looked at our, bring it up here so we can see it.
Bill, did you say you actually visited?
Yes, I did.
Oh, when?
I'll forward you that date. It's a couple of weeks ago.
And you were hosted by whom?
Lynn,
Oh, okay. Who's on?
correct.
Could you introduce him to Stanton first?
So, I reviewed our mission statement, which put up here, for those that don't quite remember. And, let's get it out of the way. See it a little better. But when you read the mission statement, along with the vision statement, which was adopted in 2009, certainly, the concerns, the status of public access, over private roads, right-of-ways, abutters ways, proprietor roads, footpaths, and any other ways through Nantucket, to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and the County Commission. So, certainly it's within our wheelhouse, that come to us, to ask these, to ask to look at these sort of things. And before I open it up to further discussion here, at the end of it all, I believe that there's a real need to view just a bevy of documents that go all the way back to the 1800s up until now, concerning this topic. Certainly nothing would be able to deal with on a regular meeting schedule. And so at the end, I'm going to suggest that we form a subcommittee of our committee to do that review and report back to this full committee with ideas of discussion and possible recommended actions. But given we're now in a full meeting, I would open it up and also include, if Lynn, do you have anything to add? You want to raise your hand? We'll recognize you. So first off, anybody in the committee have anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, some of us that have been here a while, Alan, been here longer, or close to it. I feel like we're repeating. We went through this before. And it's interesting how we are sort of talking about, except for the yoga mats, and that one wasn't brought up then. This was a similar conversation. What happened, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer. As I recall, there was a sign put up, we would remember this, and Alan, over by the Wade cottages, maybe?
Yes,
Correct?
there's one at the beginning of the path, just as you enter it, and one at the end of the path where you have to go back up.
63?
Yeah.
Okay, so having said that, this is sort of a revisit of what we went through with new stuff. Now, as far as the commercialization at the time, I remember, Alan, you're gonna remember this, I think, is remember the bus? Wasn't there like people getting dropped off
Oh,
by
yes.
like Linda Hollins or something, and then poof, they disappeared, and then the bus went up to
Yeah.
Bayberry
Here,
and parked there?
that-
As I recall, that was what was the big deal at that time.
It's still
It's-
happening.
Is it? It is?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it's still happening.
So I remember the police chief was involved a little bit, and they didn't have certain authorities. There was a lot of conversation about this commercialization stuff. That how this happened, New York Times Magazine or
This is the
something.
sign that the
Okay, so at least it's still there, because they sold some property since then, so I was curious if it was.
So
still there.
that's the signage that's at the beginning.
Right.
And that's newer signage in back 12
Then
years
there
ago.
is the signage midway.
Yeah.
In the bushes. There is. There's the post that's published at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Of the path. And let's see, is the midway, that's the midway. There's a section that folks have put up along the side, so there is signage. And when Lynn speaks, I'm sure she's gonna say that, yes, there is signage.
Is it?
But they have some suggestions on how to improve that
No, I
signage.
definitely want to hear what you have to say for sure,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna try to think back to the people that were talking then versus what they're saying now. It's really important. So,
Go ahead. Let me stop sharing this. and nobody-
Okay, I have a copy here of the report of the Wisconsin Footpath Public Access Subcommittee of the Roads and Right of Way Committee.
that's
And I think this was done, and I wasn't on the committee at the time, but it looks like for all intents and purposes, this was done in 2010. There's even a section on here that was talking about the recommendations at the time. A lot of them are very similar recommendations now, maybe without the yoga mat.
Yeah.
Specific do's and don'ts, suggested control tools even. So I think we might be looking at more like just a review and update of this and enforcement of this.
yes, I
And,
completely,
and there's more people around. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more.
Different
tour
owners.
groups, different owners. I mean.
Yeah.
A lot of owners probably are not. They bought a place on a bluff path, but they probably don't know what that totally involved. So,
Also,
should be on that deal.
it gives us a chance to review some markers that were never put in,
exactly.
which is one of the things on the.
You're talking about the ways?
Yeah.
Okay,
The lateral ways.
There are some that were identified and to be installed at a later date. We're at a much later date that haven't been installed. So I think it's an opportunity for us, which is also part of our project mission on our project list.
that's what the flush was.
About-
No use of cell phones. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that was a little,
Good luck with that.
yeah, that, see, yoga mats.
So,
No loitering, so keep on moving.
Lynn, like to speak now, so, anybody else got anything before we invite Lynn to speak? Lynn?
Bill, got my hand up,
Yeah, oh, I didn't see it, sorry.
but I'll wait on Lynn. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. I appreciated Bill and his wife coming and walking the entire path where there are safety issues sometimes, as well as issues with privacy. And if you look at the 2010 report, the whole aim is to balance the rights of people walking on the path with the right to quiet and privacy of the abutters. I think what you have forgotten is with COVID, with no one able to do anything, this became a huge part of an activity level that we've never seen before. So maybe it was great in the 1980s. I've only been here since 1985, and it was never publicized at that point. It was just used mostly by neighbors and people who live here full time who are aware of it. But now it's in every travel publication known to man, including the latest Nantucket magazine with pictures of here's one of the top 10 things to do. And this is just creating a nightmare. We're not Disney World. These are real people that live here and should be expected to use their porch without people coming up to them asking for a photograph of them and their dog. So the attitudes, when I've asked people, the rule is no running, and part of that is the sensitivity of compaction to soil. They just say, I'm sorry, I live here and I can do whatever I want. So it's kind of an attitude problem that we're dealing with some of the tourists. It's people coming on bicycles. I've seen someone try and go in a wheelchair. This is not an area that is friendly unless you know how to walk and you are stable on your own. And not to mention the tick issue and poison ivy, which, you know, at this point, we try and tell people to dress appropriately, but that's really up to them. So what I shared with Bill was more an emphasis of let's get back to what the footpath was historically, what it meant to the island of Nantucket for whale watching and looking for whales, what it meant for looking at vegetation and natural plantings, instead of I'm on a conference call and I'm going to walk the path and I'm going to have, a speaker from my phone so that everyone can hear me. So these are a little bit more definite rules that need to be really part of it. And it's this whole consideration of your neighbors. Now, I've spoken with Libby Gibson and she's approved something for Front Street where the DPW just gave us a massive input of shells because that part which connects to the cliff walk is so destroyed by hundreds of people a day that the town paid to bring out the DPW and give us materials. And we are having a sign, the town will make a sign that says emergency access vehicles only, pedestrian footpath. And at a second juncture, it will say, please be considerate of neighbors, because this is what I think you're failing to understand, how awful it is to have people actually just peering in your window like you're in a zoo. And I really think these are very nice people that live along all these paths, whether it's a big house or a little house, and they're happy to share the beauty of Sconset, but there has to be a better way of doing it. And some of the private landowners said, we'd be happy to pay for an intern who could approach it as an educational mission. Now, I don't have a huge plan that I think that will take care of all of it. I think that would make the residents feel like at least they tried something, because you're not going to assign at the bike cop out there. He has his own problems dealing with speeding on Main Street and the rotary parking. So I think we would appreciate your committee analyzing what is possible. And it starts with a better way of educating people about the history and the importance of the area, as well as, yes, it's recreational footpath, not running path, not cycling path. I've seen bicycles there, which I think is pretty insane. So just understand that, yes, we've looked at this issue before 12 years ago, but the issue is far worse and more serious. And it just doesn't make sense not to do better educational effort that comes from the town. I know you can't control the travel magazines, so I'm interested in what you think is possible outside of us providing a QR code and better signage, because the sign is basically a poem that does really nothing for educating what the importance of the area is and how to act. So I turn it over back to you, Bill.
Okay.
Lynn, I think a lot of this is a product of just the number of people who've come to Nantucket and their consideration issues in a lot of areas here. I mean, a lot of it comes down to enforcement, regardless of what a sign will say. I'm not saying we shouldn't have the signs, we should, but the fact that people will read the sign and obey the sign, that's a different story. Some neighbors, and I'm not suggesting this, but if there are neighbors up there that were willing to finance an intern, I know in Lincoln Circle, for instance, there's neighbors that at a certain time of night, there is actually an off-duty or policeman really that is paid to have people not go down and put bonfires in front of people's houses on the beaches, right, off of steps beach there. And there are several neighbors that obviously pay a salary for this person to do that. I mean, I hate that we come down to something like that, but there might have to be actually an active person for some sort of an enforcement thing. I mean, we're almost getting into the situation we did in Manicat with, the dogs and the crossing and the properties and this. A sign is one thing, the reality of having it enforced. And it's probably not just, it's probably local people as well as others. I think that a big problem out there might be the tour groups and things like that. I don't know how you can quite stop that. But I suspect that's a little bit of the problem.
Alan?
Yeah, if
Bill,
I,
Yes, oh, sorry, Lee, go ahead.
Bill, and colleagues, this is really for Patrick. When you read the report, which I intend to send to you, you'll find that the land developer in 1899 developed properties to the edge of the bluff and then retained the footpath and the bluff and the beach for the town. So this is not a private way, this is a public way. Somehow or another, 3 of the properties on Baxter Road extend over the path. And for those 3, there's an easement of the path. Otherwise, the path is public. And I say all that because you're probably going to get landed with a major, major task. I noticed in the town manager's newsletter, which went out today, that there will be a study made on alternate access to Baxter Road in case the erosional support or prevention of erosion support disappears, in which case Baxter Road's going to have to be moved. And you will have a major task out at that end of town. So I'm going from 1899 to 2023. Baxter Road is going to be in play and as a consequence, so will the footpath. Thanks.
Lee, Alan?
when we developed this, not as a project, but when we took this on, the Sconset Bluff path, the town had done legal work back in the 1980s to try and clarify the status of it. They did. It's clearly a public way. When we did this, we had no intention of making this a thoroughfare. We thought that it would, just be for.
Like it always was.
Yeah. So part of the problem is the bad behavior that Lynn describes here that happens. That's a difficult thing to regulate, how you got.
Yeah.
The thing that can be regulated or at least addressed is the tour operators. We never intended for this to be publicized the way that it's been publicized. I guess people hear about it and all of a sudden they say, oh, here's something we can do to entertain the public on it when they're on a tour and that sort of thing. How you address that sort of thing, I wish I had an answer for, because we could apply it to a lot of different situations around the island.
Another thing that might have some information is the court records from when Mrs. Mitchell tried to close it in the 1920s. I think it was 1928 or 1929. Mrs. Mitchell, who owned the big house, the third one down from where you come out now, tried to close the thing and it wound up in court. And I don't know what the
That
results
was
of the
after
court.
the Brecker house. It was 65, the one that's the old house. That's an old house. Have you
Yeah, the
ever
one
been
that
to-
used to be Cashman's.
Okay.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, she
That's
bought,
before that.
Cashman bought it from Mrs. Mitchell's estate
Interesting.
back in the 1940s.
It's the one with tennis court on the street.
Okay, I remember him like yesterday.
So
I just want to respond a little bit to what they're saying to Lynn's points. Lynn, you've been here since 85, so you've seen a lot out there.
Yes,
You remember obviously remember going up to Sankaty, that wasn't that long ago, so you saw that. We used to mow it. I worked for Earl Coffin for 10 years, and he had a contract with the town to mow that. I think it was twice a year. It was fascinating how he got me to do it in 1977, and I said, I'll pick you up at lunch at the lighthouse. I said, how's he gonna know I'm there at 12? And guess what? Because I was pulling out of the bushes at 12 o'clock. It was unbelievable. I'll never forget it. But we had, Mrs. Barr, you remember
Yeah.
Mrs. Barr, right?
Oh, yes.
Took the first ride on the Concorde. So people were poking in people's windows then too. And I'm not saying it's okay. Outdoor showers. I mean, people do, like Alan said, you can't control everybody's behavior. But being in Wisconsin for 10 years at a time of Nantucket was, just starting to get discovered by Hyannis Boat Service. There was, what is a crowd of people? We certainly didn't have commercialization at all.
No.
There were just people randomly walking, like you just see somebody, couple people, and then you wouldn't see anybody. It was sort of by itself. Personally, I agree with what everyone said, Ed, especially his points about looking at the signage. I think we should have more signage. This whole idea of a sort of a, what did you call it, an intern? Or something, like a summer special in Wisconsin. We'll call it a Wisconsin special, right?
Right.
Something like that. That is actually a really good idea, because that way we don't look, the person can't be dressed in, police looking stuff, but it definitely makes sense. It's similar to what the trustees of reservation started years and years ago with people at the beach with 3-wheelers at the time. They didn't have 4-wheelers then.
Right.
And some sort of person with a little bit of authority makes a lot of sense. And that would be something we never discussed before.
It looks like it has.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I don't know what to say beyond that, but better signage or more signage. Do they mow that? Who mows it now? Nobody?
The DPW.
Yeah, it's on the thing.
Boy, that scares me. Do they mow too much or not enough?
No, they do a good job.
Okay, good.
We're
good,
very
good.
happy with them.
They're not doing too much cutting.
No,
That was always the big concern, too much
Right.
cutting.
Yeah.
And now
So,
there's a lot of requirements.
I don't know what we can do we can do recommendations, but I like the idea about this person that would sort of be kind of walking around and kind of guiding people a little bit.
We could be an educator.
It would have to be
An
like
education.
June 15th to September 15th or something like that. It's not gonna be, beyond that, I wouldn't think. But
Rick?
Just to follow up a little bit on the buses and the visitor services impact, I think the town could have a role in just talking to those people. If you don't even communicate with them, nothing's gonna happen.
yeah,
But, I talk occasionally to a fellow who is a sort of he volunteers at visitor services. And as he says, we give him a piece of paper and it has the bluff walk on it. The town doesn't need to do that if it's not providing the right answer. So there are things that the town, I think, can do to help control a little bit of the messaging.
soften it.
I think, do we license the buses?
Yes.
I think we have an influence with them, not to be harsh, but
I
hey,
didn't know anything
please.
about this.
So, anyway,
So we're helping people go out there touring?
Yeah.
You bet.
Well, I went to
Well, we license the bus, don't tell them to go,
Yeah,
But
and
the
they
bus
we
knows. it's
license
on
the
the-
ghost tours, they walk in front of people's houses and they don't like that in town either often.
I was gonna bring that up as a comparison. So
So
you did it now.
it's, it comes down to education, but it also comes down to if we have some sort of
What
commercial
about-
license
when does it
control
close?
over, it, we might have to set limits of like how many number of people can do.
Or the bus driver says, before you get out of the bus at the bluff, I want to tell you some few things about how
Exactly,
to behave.
right.
Thank you, or we won't be able to come, or
Right.
something.
So, what we're all saying in a roundabout way, first off, this is a map that from the visitor center that's given out. And it does show at the bottom here, the bluff walk. And on the back of the map, it has bluff etiquette.
Oh, good,
Um,
okay.
And it lists a bunch of things. But regardless of what we think, we're an advisory group. And we're gonna have to advise the selectmen, whatever we come up with as ideas. And even, my guess is, even if it's changing the signage, increasing the signage, whatever, it's gonna have to go, especially now with the hoopla over signs to begin with, it's gonna have to go through that dance. And so, and Lynn, just so you know, it's, and I would caution you to say, you folks don't understand. We do understand, but we have to look at it
Yeah.
from all sides and try to present a positive view of the fact that we looked at everything. And so, as I said, when I was out meeting with folks out there, we certainly, it's within our wheelhouse. You can see from the reaction here that we take that responsibility seriously. I've gone back through, some of the members have provided me some past documents. There's some others out there. We're gonna try to get all those. It appears a link is broken on the town website, so we can't get them all, but we're gonna try to get that squared away. And none of this is gonna be able to solve sitting around this table. We're gonna have to delegate this to a couple of members and have them do some heavy lifting for us. And then bring it back and do some more discussion and have more input. And at the end of the day, we can make suggestions. And strongly hope that the select board and the other regulatory commissions and boards listen to us. And I think down the road, if people go away and they like some of what we did and they don't like some of what we did, that's probably the best we're gonna do, because we're certainly not gonna prove all of these situations to everybody's effect. And before Ed speaks, we have a visitor. Ian has his hand up.
Yep.
Want to unmute yourself? There.
Thank you, Bill. And Lynn, I certainly sympathize. We lived at 99 Baxter Road from 63 to 1997, 35 years. And of course, and in fact, as it happens, my screensaver here is the chicken wire fence that my parents put up. And that's a nor'easter. And when after a while, Chester Barrett would drop people off and pick them up at the lighthouse, drop them off in the village. And so he was asked if he could just drop them off, and then, they would make their way back to the village, and that certainly reduced the amount of traffic. And we ended up putting a sign up just saying, please respect our privacy. And that seemed to work completely. And so that was a while ago. So anyway.
Sadly, I think the behavior is very different now. And
Right.
it's all about, what they want to do. And Bill and I had talked about what the neighbors said would really be the most appreciated and also probably the hardest to enforce. And we have it on the Civic Association website. I know legally, I think the terms of the deed are sunrise to sunset.
That's what I
When
wanted
you
to
look
bring
at
up.
what time sunrise is in the summer, it's
Yeah.
very early. So we would love it if you could consider what the land bank does with the children's playground in Sconset, because it abuts neighbors who weren't very happy with that either. Was 7:30 is a recommended start time.
What's the closing, like 6? Or what would you like it to be? I don't know. I wasn't
Oh, I can tell you what I'm only representing the neighbors. I don't live
Yeah,
on the
what's the
water, so
playground?
I'm safely on a dead end street. 7:30 sounds very reasonable to a lot of the Baxter Road people. And it would be really nice if everyone stopped coming before 6, because think when you want to have dinner out in the backyard, you are now entertaining a host of tourists as well.
I think she's right about, I was thinking about like, what is this closing? Like, is there such a thing?
Yeah, people go to watch,
It's,
Sunset, I know,
does.
well, the sunset's in Mattocket though, Ed.
I know. Well, when does the
Just saying.
Lynn, when does the playground close? Because it might be easier if we've already done something
Something like
somewhere
that.
to do
I
it.
think they're at dusk as well. I can go look and send Bill a update. But you know that they're very conscious of being good neighbors. And so I think that they really don't want people, imagine the swing going back and forth at 9 at night, which when my kids were little, the swing was at the beach at Sconset and you could still hear it a block away. So
Grease on it.
And they did it at 11
No
o'clock
grease
at night,
there.
the little rolling thing. It went
I'm
around.
thinking
and
that,
So I just think if you could consider the hours, that would make a positive impact on the abutters. And they are happy, believe me, to pay for the interns. And if it's a legal requirement that they need to be sponsored, I told them that the Civic Association could probably sponsor the interns as long as they were fully paid for as a gift specified for that purpose.
So Lynn,
I'm thinking that,
Okay. Yeah.
that what's gonna happen here is, hopefully we're gonna, you see the sense that we wanna do something.
Yes,
I think, we'll end up delegating this to a subcommittee. My guess is the subcommittee will come back, with, a menu, if you will, of possible things to do with very little heavy lifting.
okay,
Changing of hours, changing some signage, low hanging fruit, if you will,
Yeah.
to show that that your neighbors and the abutters, that we're taking this seriously, and these seem to be no-brainer kind of things, as long as we can get correct authorization. And then the heavy lifting will have to take place after that. And that won't be a quick and easy thing. It's going to be drawn out in some cases. And but I think that certainly sounds like a reasonable plan. And I would toss it out to the members here for any input in that. And Ed?
A couple things, and this is, we're not reinventing the wheel. This is a document from 12 years ago, and I'm gonna read a few things. There were concerns, well, there's two things going on. There was concerns from abutters living, especially in the northern reaches of the past, were focused on confusion about the entry and exit points, and to a lesser degree about the behavior of users on the northern end. But obviously the lateral entries is definitely in our bailiwick. The other thing is that the conclusions here, the town, and this is, there basically comes down to initial set of enforceable, acceptable uses and improved behaviors. Is to reassert the existing town laws and ordinances relating to noise ordinance, pet management under the leash law, and alcohol use under the open container and other related bylaws. So the laws exist.
Yeah.
And there were specific do's and don'ts. Do's, walk, footpath open from 7:30 a.m. It says here to sunset year round. That's what it says here, 7:30 a.m. to sunset year round. Eyes eastward concept, encourage viewing of seascape and not into homes, which you can only do that by encouragement, of course. That's, it's kind of hard there. The don'ts, no commercial use of any kind, including walking tours for a fee.
Right.
That was on here. No jogging, no bicycles. It does say no use of cell phones, which I think in this day and time is going to be very difficult. No loitering, no entrance to private property. I mean, once they step on private property, they're trespassing. No littering, no picnicking, no stopping to set up a picnic, no pets off leash, no drinking. So that's, and it's our suggested control tools at the time were signage. education, and everything we're saying today.
Yeah,
It's right there.
Yeah,
I'd just like to, we didn't
Yeah.
way too deep into this.
Yeah.
And we got other stuff on the agenda here, so, I think we've, given Lynn, certainly, an indication that, we're not gonna drop this and that we'll, before we end up with this, we can check out and figure out who wants to be a subcommittee, but we really need to move on with it. So,
Bill, I'm still trying to fill in the minutes. Lynn, do you remember what day it was that you took the walk?
I'd have to look at my calendar, but it was August, so.
I'll get it to you,
it's just a-
later.
Okay, if you would, please, just to be thorough.
All right, well, thank you for your time. And I will log off.
Oh, you don't have
thank
to
you very
stay.
much.
You can stay with us for the rest of the night if you want. We're gonna be here.
So glad you brought that.
Have a picnic.
Yeah.
So, Bill, if I just may say, unfortunately, I have a 5 o'clock Concom meeting, so I won't be able to spend the rest of the night with you, but thank you. All right,
Wanna be
goodbye,
your
everybody.
friend,
Right.
Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Ian,
So what's the board's pleasure here before we change the subject?
So you're looking for a subcommittee to work
That's
on
my
this?
recommendation. I'm looking to see if there's a motion to do so.
I would be glad to serve on that. I'd work with Ed. Ed seems to have some documentation here and
I'll throw
maybe.
some ideas in there. for you. I mean, this is a really cool conversation, but we've created some of this ourselves with all
I had
the,
forgotten.
a lot of hype out there.
Yeah,
And,
mean,
but
it's
I love
important,
this.
I had
love
forgotten
that.
about that document
It's a good
because, it seemed as though when we initiated this and we came up with that we had addressed a lot of this.
Yeah.
You want me to
it
send
sounds-
this? Does everybody have that? I've got a soft copy I can send.
No,
you.
that's good. And,
I don't
and
have
as far as how
it.
you handle the
I'll
phone
send it.
stuff now, you just say speaker and loud conversations. You don't have to get into the actual use. When people are walking around like this and they're talking into their phone, you can hear it 10 houses away if the wind is right.
Well, a lot of times what they have is they have this thing in their ear.
I
and
do
they're
that
talking.
and I yell on the phone all the time. But what I'm saying is what you could say in a sign, you can't say no cell phones.
No.
Like you said, that's not possible, but you
Not
say
today.
loud conversations and speakerphone.
Kind of like
is
on a
different.
bus. The rules,
Yeah,
the rules. on a
Like
bus.
when you're on P&B to Boston, the guy yells at you. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, one of them drives us
Still
crazy.
gotta
So
have
we
a
got a
good voice.
motion. to
Make a
form-
motion to form the group as the subcommittee for the Bluff Path revisit of the existing document.
You want to name some-
Revisit our-
Second it.
Name some members.
I'll help out with it, Alan.
Yeah,
I got all your
Ms. Bridge?
contacts.
Oh, well,
All right, so the motion has been made by Nat, seconded by Snooky. Any further discussion? In that case, we do a roll call. Alan Reinhardt,
I,
Lee Saperstein,
All right,
Catherine,
Aye.
Matt Lowell,
Aye.
Snooky,
I,
Ed Gillum,
aye.
and Chair says aye.
You might need Snooki in this meeting, don't you?
You
you don't want to sponsor the rock.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Um,
You need permission.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is chapter 91 signage, and also 46 Easton Street. And
Recently, the paper,
bring up the
one of the paper just recently.
46 Easton Street.
There was a couple in the
next to
paper,
the White
there
Elephant.
was a couple in the paper recently. One,
This
one,
is the project compliance statement.
one in the paper about 40, the one right next to the
Yeah,
White Elephant,
right.
because they're now trying to alter their chapter 9. Well, for the second time, in a different format.
This is the project compliance statement. So this was, I'll scroll down to the end here. And this pertains to, what did I say, 46 Eastern Street?
Yeah, you're looking at this statement, you're asking
You're
about.
looking at this.
I mean, I'd be happy to give you
Yeah.
the background.
Thank you.
This really came to our attention from the Concom,
Right.
looking at the approval request by a new owner for 46 Easton Street. And even though the Concom doesn't have Chapter 91 jurisdiction, usually somebody asks about it and it becomes a public issue. And then after that discussion, people were sort of wondering what happens, and there was the ad in the paper. Maybe the one Ed's referring to. This was probably a month ago or more. After that, I read the ad, and the ad says if you want to come to the public hearing about this matter, you may do so, and I did so. I found it very interesting. There's a DEP hearing officer
Really?
and the applicant, and mostly their attorneys and their sort of wetlands specialist was there, much like appearing before the Conservation Commission. And it was a very healthy meeting. And there were a number of documents, and as part of the process in the ad, they made clear that anybody who wanted to can go to the DEP website and get all the documents related to the Chapter 91 application, which you don't get at the Concom. They don't, the
Yeah.
applicant doesn't voluntarily bring up Chapter 91 issues at the Concom. Whether they go away. But the DEP in this case was very good. And I have a feeling they do this on a sort of an ongoing basis when something is active. And the guy I emailed back and forth was named Frank. I think he may have been the guy on the Chapter 91 forum, Alan. And he was very helpful. He said, I couldn't get in for a while. I emailed him and he emailed right back. And this document is instructive. And the part that's instructive from our point of view is public access. There is a map, and that's 5-foot way from Easton to the beach. There's an easement provided by the owner of the property as part of the 91 approval. But then you should go to, if you have the time and haven't done it, you should read paragraph 2. And it's quite instructive because they talk about a water dependent use. And they get involved with such things, walkways and related facilities along the entire length of the water dependent use zone, otherwise provided in a municipal harbor plan, and so on. And they're talking about things that we've talked about related to a harbor walk. And it seemed to me, if we all take a little bit of time and read this, I think the DEP would be very receptive to hearing from the town or the roads and right of way, maybe through the town, that we are interested in establishing a harbor walk from the Coast Guard all the way around to the creeks. And whenever, Mr. DEP, you have a Chapter 91 license, you can be helpful in making sure public access across the harbor side of those lots is made available and access is provided, which they have to do anyway. Again, I thought, I don't know if we have time, but to make that comment, which is, I think they're open to the 15th of October, related to 46, starts a process and brings to the hearing officer's attention our interest. So
And also, that document, and you can see it up right now, I'll highlight it. That's the highlighting the screen. That's the 5-foot wide pedestrian path. The east side of the property from Easton Street to the existing bulkhead. There will be signage on Easton Street identifying this public access path. It's interesting to note that it says it's not feasible to have a walkway along the shorefront because this is a single family home and such walkway would create safety and public hazard. But clearly it states you should be able to go down Easton Street, see the sign, and walk out to the water and
Right, I
Like the
think,
bluff out.
I think the way, it is like that.
That was just what I was kicking around in the back of my head.
No, I think you're absolutely, a harbor walk has many of the same elements.
Yeah.
As we get there over time.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be alert and why these are important to follow up on. The applicant, in effect here, I hope I have this right, was seeking a waiver not to do certain things along the front of his property. And it was amazing to me that they even discussed a wooden walkway. So that in some cases, they may be requiring that. I'm not sure we're into that here, but we should be alert, that's a possibility and not unheard of by the DEP.
Uh,
Is this document from the
Rick, I
DEP?
hear you, and, but I'm not picking up. Who's holding the hearing?
This was held by the DEP.
DEP,
Yeah, I don't know what their division.
it's
is.
the Waterways Division of, Waterways Division.
Yeah, and this is like a licensing hearing.
And you're suggesting that we add a written comment to the hearing record?
I think it would be very helpful. And I think it's not attacking anything. It's not disagreeing with what the DEP has already done. It's sort of like saying, nice job. We'd like to help you, help us with other licenses as they come along. And this is an opportunity to communicate with.
So can I just give you a little thought on this a little bit? Go back to Alan's bluff, oh my God, harbor walk concept, which was how many years ago? A while, all right? I've always thought of it being Washington Street to, you know, the creeks, whatever we call it, down wherever it would end somewhere, probably at Mike Backman's old house, I would assume now, right? Or
The new
Or
park.
It should end up with the park.
The new
yeah,
park.
at the new park,
Right.
right, that was Judge Pollins, I'm not gonna call it the other one,
Hey,
because that's who it was.
hey,
So anyway, without getting into like sort of adversarial sort of stuff with bazillionaire property owners that are doing things, whatever. I like the idea though of approaching whoever that it would be in Boston or however this works. This is sort of, yeah, but this is,
I think, Rick's suggestion.
the chapter 91 stuff is sort of like the land court, isn't it? Like old sort of dusty rooms and lockers and stuff. You know what I mean? So what I'm just saying is, in the future, what we could find out, what could or couldn't be done. I think that's a more of a important. That's what I'm getting out of what you're saying, Rick, is if and when we ever decide to build something that we can actually walk around, whether it's from Brant Point to the Hayes property or from, you know,
Cottage Springs.
whatever, I don't know, you know what I mean? Because it would all require that regardless, right?
I'm not suggesting we pick a lot that doesn't have it and we jump
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
I'm saying an easy way to get into this over time.
yes, I agree
Is
with
to
that. Bob.
support what people are
I
doing.
just don't want to harass people, I want to work with them,
I
that's
understand.
all.
But there are times when the property owner would prefer you weren't there. And we shouldn't run away if we can do it in the right fashion.
Yeah, I
okay?
agree.
And a good example for everybody to remember is the Great Harbor Yacht Club.
Yeah.
There's a right of way.
Exactly. We could have got a lot more.
Around
if we were friendly.
the club. You can walk down the club, going back of
Yeah.
it. Hi, guys.
Yeah.
And walk around the pool and come out the other side.
No, I know.
We, chapter 91 did that. We
Yeah,
didn't do.
yeah, but we could have done more if we were nicer,
Well,
but I hear what you're saying,
I'm not
they
even-
had to do that, but the other thing too.
Rick, I'm going to ask about a specific action. Should we be writing before the deadline to the DEP?
I think we should, but I think we probably have to recognize that we're liable to find, I don't know, someone else can comment on this, people at the town who may be concerned about committees making communications on behalf of the town without going through the town. We're an advisory committee.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I
good point.
don't, you know, we could write a letter, but I can hear somebody somewhere saying, you know, you don't have
No,
any
that's not
authority to
talking
do
about
that. Get the hell out of here, buddy.
Well, the other thing I want to bring up in this too is the yacht, the old yacht club, the regular yacht club.
Yeah.
That whole easement confusion, who owns what there, that way it used to be a beach. And cutting through the steamship, there's a gate, I mean, there's a little thing there that's confusing. That was when your Harbor Walk was really involved in that discussion.
Exactly.
Like, there was a lot of discussion about that. And I think that sort of fits into what you're talking about too. It isn't just about that spot. There's a lot of, I mean, we'll all be long gone by the time there's a Harbor Walk. But I think it's a good idea to try to figure out if it's even possible. You know what I mean? And then decide, okay, are we doing Easy Street or are we gonna really try to go to Brant Point? Like, that's my thinking, you know?
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make a suggestion. Rick, can you compose a note on our behalf to the town manager that allows the town manager to know what the deadline is and what the proposed action would be?
Yeah, I think we ought to be realistic about timeframes.
Yeah.
Okay, Lee, I think that would be good, but I think the fellow I talked to who works up there would be receptive to a letter that even came in outside the specifics of this property's licensing process.
Okay,
So it would be better, it makes it official, all that, but by the time it gets up to Libby and so on, you know, we won't meet till after that deadline. I forget when it is. It's like the 15th of October or something. And so I don't know that we should try and rush on that specific case. They're already providing beach access along the front. So.
If I hear you correctly, and I agree with this, I think that what we really want is kind of a listening post, a seat at the table, so to speak, and for the future. I don't think we need to inject a lot of our opinions on the matter, because like you say, they're already working pretty, when you read through this, they're all fairly thorough. And you know, certain things triggered this anyway, because the project's within 100 feet of the shoreline and blah, blah, blah. The person, by the way, who owns this property, if I understand correctly, he's an attorney, a tort attorney from Louisiana. So I'm sure he's been fairly thorough with his legal.
Well, he hired Dan Bailey, who does a lot of Chapter 91 work on the island.
Exactly.
People call Dan when they
But he's going through the right.
need help.
Yeah.
But he's going through the right
Yeah.
motions versus some that, there's a lot of projects going on down there. So it'd be interesting to see if the other projects are doing the same.
All the docks on Easton Street have to have 91 licenses. I mean, we're not asking for something that isn't there already, so.
Well, they just scraped the house that has a major dock down there. That used to be the Johnson's property. And it was kind of like hotel rooms or motel rooms, really, in the old days. In fact, I think they were motel rooms. But there's a lot going on Easton Street in particular right now. I mean, that street is totally under construction.
Two quick things. There used to be a sign at the White Elephant when you know, they have that wonderful walkway that you can go down.
There's still
Next to the pool. Next to the pool.
Where the pool was.
Yeah,
Beach side.
yeah, well, it goes right along the harbor
Yeah,
there where the docks are and so
Yeah.
on. And there used to be a sign that said Chapter 91, you know, welcome, and you could walk. And when you got to the end, you used to be able to jump down on that little sandy beach there
Which
at
is it.
46, you know,
Right.
and so on. So that's one point. The other point is that with all the work that's going on with coastal erosion and that sort of thing, the land bank has been heavily involved in Washington Street, elevated sidewalk, beaches, you know, all that sort of thing. There are plans that I think will address a lot of that, because the whole thing is to have an elevated walkway, bike path as a protection to Washington Street. And the original concept of the harbor walk was to get all the way down to what's, you know, the Otiston property now, and now up to the Hayes property. And I think that, yeah, that's really the goal. And I think that with all the work that's going on now with the coastal erosion, that's one area that we can sort of focus on and see what's going on and,
That would be a better area to focus on than this, because this area
right, yeah.
will
East
will be
Street
under
is
water.
tricky, but
It will be, it will, what's the?
Well, speaking of Washington. Let me-
66
You know,
Washington.
it's like
this-
all of the Wilkes Square shorefront is chapter 91 approved.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all right there now.
This is the new signage that appeared on at 66 Washington Street. It appeared in two places. This is on the, if I reduce this, back it out a bit, you can see where it's located.
Whose house?
So it's right on the edge of the bulkhead on the south side of the land bank property, across from the house that got moved. So that's one location that the sign is.
Is that that new owner?
No.
Well, this
That's
was,
not one of
both of these signs initially were posted on the bulkhead in front of land bank property.
Oh, land bank.
And the next time I went down to see it, that one is still there. You can see it's right on the edge with the fence line there. And the other one got moved to, let me show you that one.
Because there's a new owner right there.
Yeah,
There's a
the
local.
other one got moved to.
Maybe they don't want people in front of their little house.
Gonna be, you know, eventually the land bank's gonna own all of these, so it's gonna be academic.
Anyway,
And
the other
they're
one.
happy to have a.
yeah,
The
They
other
just
one
have
they
to
moved
pay
down
up
in
on
front
it.
of,
No, you missed out on that one that the local people bought.
I know. Well, we tried and they didn't, no.
Right. And
So,
that's where I think these signs came from.
Hmm?
I think that's where these signs came from.
Yeah, bet it is. That's right next door.
Okay,
They
yeah.
done that fancy little weed patch in the front yard.
I mean, and they're nice local people. They've been around a while and
Yeah,
the builder.
so they've added that verbiage about.
So as I read the sign, it's inappropriate.
Right.
What, Alan, do you know what's gonna happen to the sign?
Well, they had, if it was on land bank property, I think initially at the bulkhead, they had to move it because. So, you know, to their own
This is
property.
the second one, and you can see that they moved it.
That's on the other side of their property. Right.
So that's in front of their, I'm assuming it's them, their cottage.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
to the
putting it.
right, you can see the fence line, which is where the other one is.
That's the one that you got.
Yeah, but it still reads inappropriate to chapter 91.
Yeah, it's a low water mark.
Yeah, it's not low water, it's high water.
I don't know where they got the sign, but the sign is, you're right, Lee, you're right, the sign is inappropriate, and they also have Mass General Law, blah, blah, blah underneath,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting as well.
I think this sign should move to Vatican.
Yeah.
Well,
One 188 Mattocket Road.
I think we know where it goes.
this is part of the issue that, because the neighbor to Mr. White, Dr. White out there, now his neighbor
Oh,
has put up the same sign and so on.
Spreading.
I was walking that beach and I came up to that sign and there was a woman with a child there on the property. And I stopped, looked at the sign, pulled out my camera, took a picture of the sign with them in the background. And they disappeared, you know, but that's exactly the kind of thing that we want to stop. You know.
I don't even have to worry about that on Washington Street, but that is the one circumstance.
I think
It's
Washington
unfortunate.
Street, we ought to do some enforcement action with the sign,
Yeah.
or at least make the sign read
The reason no one's
correctly
saying
what
it
it's.
is it's on the other side of the bulkhead.
Can we move on, we'll jump ahead and let Will speak, so he isn't here till
So
midnight.
I'll be happy to draft something we can circulate and I'll think if it's the right way to approach the
Okay.
town, okay?
Will? You're muted.
How's it going, Bill?
Mr. Stuckey, how are you?
I have a barking dog right now.
Oh,
Sorry.
do you have any updates on either a Park and Rec project, DPW road projects, the encroachment stuff, anything within that wheelhouse?
So I don't have any really long update for you guys today. Nothing too different than last month. We do have Victor Brandon out, as I'm sure you've seen plenty of milling and paving going on around the island. I believe they've finished New Street in Sconset. We were about halfway, or they were about halfway through Eel Point, and the asphalt plant actually broke down the other day. So that stalled the project a little bit. But I think they're back at it either today or tomorrow. Working on encroachments. We just had one on Duke's Road that we've actually cut back around the stop sign there. When you're coming out of Duke's Road, it has been extremely difficult to see cyclists or pedestrians on the bike path at all when you're coming out onto Matticat Road there. You basically have to edge out into the bike path in order to see anybody coming, which that's already a problem. As we know, a lot of people don't stop at the stop signs on the multi-use paths. There's a lot of irons in the fire currently with encroachments. I'm working with Ken on a lot of different stuff. We've started to track them a little bit better with like a shared spreadsheet between me and him and Haley. Other than that, been very busy with permitting. There's a lot of work going on the island, as you can imagine. In September, people have left. Things are getting busy, but I also, if you guys have any questions about any specific things too, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, actually, I'd just like to say thank you. After the last meeting where it was pointed out there were some orange paint around town.
Yes.
Obvious places that need to be filled. And the people in Quidnet took advantage of that knowledge, contacted you.
Yes.
Almost the next day, there were pink marks where there were none before. And I know you're gonna get out there and fill them in when the asphalt plant gets back online.
Yep.
So I'm serious though. I think that kind of responsiveness is gonna go a long way to build
Absolutely.
credibility for your efforts,
So,
because they haven't been there for a long time, so.
The other thing I'd like to just give you a heads up on F Street, where the parking is for all the people launching boats and stuff. A couple of years ago, the town actually cut back some bush, and they did an area for off-street parking sort of. And they did a berm, Cape Cod berm, and very effective. And over the last couple of years, when people launch their boats, that's where they're parking their trailers and trucks and whatever. And as we know, the bushes all grow, and so there was probably half of the width that was taken up by bushes. And I had written a ticket, and the troops came out, but they were stymied because it was full of trailers, so they could only
Sure.
hand plow it. But I noticed today you had the giant chopper out running along Matticat Road, trimming
The sickle
down.
bar, yeah.
And my suggestion is that you might give them a reminder to hit that area before the commercial scallop season starts. Because
Yeah.
once again, that's gonna be full of trailers. And those fellows are there, and women. There'll be a bevy of trailers, and the more they can get off the road, the easier it is for them to get out and get back with their limits and stuff. So just a
Absolutely.
reminder on that. But
That was F Street, right?
correct.
Okay. I'm writing a quick note because we'll see if I remember in the morning without writing a note, but
Anybody else have anything?
Bill, just for everybody's awareness, isn't F Street the one that runs down to the public pier?
Correct.
yes, yeah.
That's the boat ramp.
say Walters Road, Walters.
Yes.
I can't remember the letters.
And I believe that piece of equipment, that sickle bar attachment that we have for the skid steer has been down for quite a while, and that's why we're seeing it out again. Very useful piece of equipment for us that definitely has been much
There
needed
you
for
go.
a while.
Hit a wire or something with that thing.
Yeah, I know. I used to do roadside mowing, not a long time ago, but probably 10 years ago. And that's always a little
Nervous.
bit of a scary situation.
It's one way to get rid of mailbox.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can I-
You find
can I just-
hidden guy wires quick.
And that,
Just Will, I don't even know who you are, and this is shocking me that there's somebody like you that actually cares possibly. This is a huge thing. I'm kind of a little of everything with this stuff, and I've talked to Victor a lot. I was obviously close to Rob, talking to him a lot, working with him on a lot of projects, and
Yep.
just little improvements. What is your role? Are you sort of like another Mo, or are you assistant? What are you? Like, what
So-
is your, I see Park and Rec, but this doesn't sound like Park and Rec to me.
Oh, does it say park? Does it say park?
Says
and
that
rec
on
my
the,
thing?
it says that on the screen, so I don't know.
So I'm the permit services coordinator for the DPW. It's a pretty new position. That was something that was kind of being handled by, I think, the deputy or
Yeah.
really like our admin. So we were having a lot of issues with, that can be a full-time job.
So you're
certain
working
parts of the
with
year.
Jim from Stantec a lot, or just a little?
So I actually haven't yet. I've been here since July. I'm like mildly aware of Jim, just because I have gone out with Mo, just doing the marking for that. So that's actually like that's a grant program that patching. It's called WRAP. It's the Winter Recovery Assistance Program. I know. I don't know how I remember
More
that, but-
rules and names, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But it's to fix sections of pavement that have been damaged over the winter from the freeze thaw cycle and whatnot. So Mo has been dealing with Jim. I think Mo and Steven have been dealing with Jim. I'm kind of like an accessory to
I
the.
know, that's good. I'm just trying to figure out what you're doing and, how to communicate a little bit,
but
maybe,
he actually came
not
to us,
sure.
he was introduced to us, as, Valachi's replacement committee. So
Okay,
that's how he got tagged.
I see, I got that, so that makes sense, I
So
see.
now
what-
it's grown. Pretty soon he's gonna be the DPW director, so.
Well, this is good, because
Slow down.
I would like to. We'll talk about this later. I gotta go back to work. So this is good. I appreciate you being here. I
Yeah,
can tell by
absolutely.
just the way you're talking that you actually might
Care.
be a keeper.
I do
Will,
care.
This is a very, I like to go back to the old way of doing things in the modern society.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do with some things. There's so much improvement that can be done that you won't even notice it
Yeah.
being any different. It's just nicer and better. And, like when Rick's talking about Quinnet Road is the most, the three most dangerous roads on the island: Quinnet, Walnut, and New Lane, not even question.
Yeah.
And Quinnet is so narrow and so dangerous to ride a bicycle on. And then when the edge of the pavement falls in because it's so narrow, it's not because the pavement isn't done right, it's because the road ain't wide enough.
Right.
That's what's wrong. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't care what anybody says. It's like 16.5 feet wide.
Yeah.
So, fixing
confirm
Quinnet
that.
is very complicated project as far as patching, because you're
Mhm.
sort of like patching the edge of a cliff. There's nothing to hold it up.
Right.
So, but I did see some stuff. They've done a couple of little things by Chase Lane there, but anyway, it's nice to hear from you, meet you unofficially, and thank you for what you're
I
doing.
think we got Quidnet
Could I
comments
just-
for Rick.
Tagline one
Yeah.
little bit on the Quinnet Road.
Yeah,
Thanks for the patching, but sometime we're gonna get back to you and get that rock moved right next to, when you come off the Popus Road and come up, it's.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
left-hand side.
Yeah.
And when I come by that road, I'm not alone,
Yeah,
and a big truck's coming at me. I
there's
got
no
a
place to
big
go.
problem, and I'm gonna go over the rock pretty soon, and anyway.
You're talking about the one that goes into E5 Spring, I
Yeah.
mean, not E5 Spring, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, that-
You know what I'm talking.
Yeah, I know what
about.
you mean. That needs to go back a couple feet.
It needs
Rick,
to
if
just
you
come
hit it
out.
hard enough, it'll
Well.
move it for
Anyway, I'm sort of kidding, but I'm not.
What does that mean?
Because
Oh,
eventually that's a safety hazard.
not E5.
Well, if I'm not incorrect, I believe from talking to you at one of our first meetings that you came to in person, your background is actually in trees, vegetation, stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why spot on a lot of this.
I like this.
Yeah.
Well,
All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us.
speaking of.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're gonna move along here and we're gonna shoot right to the last agenda item so everybody can go home.
Yeah.
And it's a quick thing. I just wanted to show you all, in case you had noticed it, that where did I hit?
Is this the one about the Francis Street Beach?
This is, no, this is,
Send us a picture of the canoes and all that.
let me just close out everything here. This is,
Is that encroaching on something?
on the bottom of the agenda, what I tried to do was to, that's the agenda, that's the wrong one, Bill. And you notice on the bottom of the agenda, I tried to do just an update of where we are on
On the progress.
project, the project list.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can. I've got too many screens and not enough hands.
You're basically talking about page 2 and 3 here.
Yeah, page 2 of the
Yeah.
agenda.
Of the agenda.
And
Just look at the-
Ellen, well, I tried to finagle it.
Yeah, you want, I've got a.
Oh, I just was gonna put it up, but we've all, just so Will could see it, but actually, you all got it if you got the agenda. So
We got
it's on the back page.
Yep.
You can send
And,
Bill an agenda, man.
So I thought that it'd be a good way for us to just follow where we were. And so that we had an idea, oh, here's an update on whatever, and so we can stick it in there. Just more of a timeline, an unofficial timeline, so we had some clue of what's up.
It's good.
And right now, we still have the folks that were running with it way back for years. So if somebody wants to bail out of that, we want to add somebody's name, it's certainly all there. But I just thought it was prudent that we started with updates on there.
I thought that was good.
It'll come out.
I thought that was
every
good.
month with an idea.
It gives you a to-do list, or at least a
Yeah, this is where we are.
check mark list,
Yeah.
done, not done.
And
needs to be
maybe
done.
before we all move to Wyoming, we'll actually be able to remove some of these as completed.
Or get voted off committee. one or the other.
The
goals.
So anyway,
And adding some new stuff too,
new items,
or,
Ed,
I have a very quickie new item. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I did take a copy of this from the Ink and Mirror on August 18th about non-access points being lost. And so in our talking about access points of the beach, that they're being lost now to erosion. And as coastal resiliency and like you were talking about the land bank and, monitoring this, we might want to start monitoring as we track what are the access points, the ones that are either being lost, in danger of being lost. Can we do anything about that? Or is there nothing that we can do? Mother Nature is going to do her thing and that's that.
we could do a lot if we wanted to, if we're not gonna do it.
But well, I'm just saying that it might be something, another cognizant item to be paying attention to.
Built a-
As we're talking
built a
about
wall,
access.
It's actually upon Popus Road
I
in
know.
15 minutes. We could be doing a lot of things like that. Didn't even have a permit. We did it and it works. So there you go.
I know.
It's like a no-brainer. I want to just bring something
Yeah.
up real quick. Sorry, I haven't been in a couple meetings and I really appreciate you having this. This is nice and I'm sorry I haven't been here, but I want to just bring something up that that's very, very near and dear to Lee and, anyone past and present. This whole town tree thing, okay? So Mary Longacre brought it to my attention about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so. Nat, she said, what about getting town trees on people's plot plans or deeds or, you know, whatever, and I thought about us with the front friendship stairs and the things that we did with Joe, right, when Joe was here. How we get the friendships, you know, when you sell a house, you have to, that has to be shown as it's on town property. And whether we're licensed them or not, I don't know that, but I'm just saying. And that all came back to me about this town tree issue, because right across the street. Where are we? The over a Ryder property right here, those trees right there are town trees. And they just got brought up as far as something to do with some work they want to do, build another building or whatever. And of course, the York Street one, that's the stuff that is gonna happen. I'm talking about things you're just driving by every single day, you don't even think about it. Is this a town tree or not, right? So it came up at our meeting the other day, literally like 2 weeks after this I talked to Andrew about it. No one ever thought of this before. This is a really good idea. To get there's a list of these trees. I mean, it's not like it's not impossible. It's one of those sort of like town road lists, but we don't really know where it is, but it's there, kind of like that.
It should be.
It's so important to get these identified on when a surveyor does a survey. They have so much stuff on these plans, but there's nothing about town trees. And it's a huge issue. And I didn't realize it was as big as it is. Didn't realize it was as many as there is. So I just want you to know, I thought about this committee because technically we've talked about it with, obviously with this Pleasant Street project, but not as much as we did with stuff in the sidewalks and back in the day when we had the street committee, you know what I mean? So that's sort of in the, I guess I would call it in the pot, kind of getting circulated, and especially with this 37 Union Street application. That is a town tree in that yard.
Well, it's
So you see what I mean? Like
Oh,
it starts to pop up, you know?
Well, just to bring you up to date.
Yeah.
54 and 56 Sankaty Road. My
Thinking
two,
road, okay, gotcha.
they were getting ready to plant the trees. They were gonna put them between the property line and the edge of the asphalt. I says, no, put them in my yard. Because they were planting directly under the telephone cable and the electric wires.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to put them in the layout of the road or in the setback. Well, that was
Yeah.
before zoning, but technically, and that's the other part about this. Most of the trees are not in their technically buildable land.
Yeah,
They're in either the road layout or the setback,
yeah,
Look at
which
the,
is good.
these
look
are in the
at,
setback.
that Sherburne Turnpike off of Cliff Road,
Mhm.
where they put the new Nantucket light chip basket for landscapers, those little square blocks.
Oh, I saw.
No, those,
You know what?
Those need to go.
That's
And-
ridiculous.
And now.
You know what
they're-
that's
on
for?
that
No
picture-
parking.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with looks.
Right.
No,
They're just not rocks.
They don't
I'm
want
being
parking.
facetious.
That's all it is.
It's an
But
encroachment.
That particular property on the corner
It's an
there.
encroachment.
It's a
yeah.
big encroachment and it's a safety hazard.
Yeah,
Somebody's gonna hit them in the snow.
I mean, their
There's like
trees are
4 or
an
5
encroachment,
trees
quite
on
frankly,
there.
but
You
who
go by
cares?
there?
But-
I think we're talking to the right guy right here.
Well, Patrick brought up the
Maybe they'll
triangle.
just
I forgot that he
disappear.
was still on the meeting. Patrick brought up that triangle with, and, you know, because somebody brought it to his attention. The reason that there was all that parking is because there's 2 different projects going on simultaneously, and now they're kind of cleaning up. Or 3, there may have been, well, there was one further up the
And they're
road.
about to start 2 more.
Well, maybe they'll be,
That's all he's
I think
telling
they're
me.
more towards the,
Empty lot.
I think they're more towards Kimball Ave.
Next to Phil Reed, there's about to be a big project.
But that property in the corner, they just did 3 to 5 trees.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be in the layout, because it's to the street side of the telephone pole.
The trees,
If it's on the street side of the
I was
telephone
part and
poles,
parcel of selling a property nearby.
the telephone poles. are-
That is in the road, the trees are, and those little, I call them soldiered,
Yeah.
you know, wooden, the trees are in the layout, okay, fine and good, it's trees. And I'm not gonna go as far as to, they are in the layout. They're probably not in that particular place a hazard. Those soldiered things are a hazard
Yeah,
at
they are.
night. They're a safety hazard.
They're all
And-
Lincoln.
And they probably got irrigation heads in the ground nearby,
Where the flagpole
which they shouldn't
is,
have.
between
That's just the new
telephone
rock.
poles and the edge.
Well,
It's
people,
a new rock,
people in Sherman Turnpike are tired of people parking all these trucks in front of their property. I
but
mean,
they
it's
were
happened
working
every-
on their projects.
Well,
Their projects caused it.
Well, the ones across the
So-
street aren't theirs, and yeah, you
Sounds
know,
like Monomoy.
it's getting where Delaney, I mean, all those streets, they're all putting rocks, I mean, local families put a bunch
That's a
of,
whole nother.
they put a bunch
conversation.
of these Belgian block things that are sold
All right.
like those.
We should wrap this up. So we can get down before midnight.
I think we're getting carried away.
I think so.
Can I just say
Rock-
one more thing about the tree thing, and then we'll, because I live on North Liberty Street, and those are town trees down through North Liberty Street. In fact, after all this controversy of late, I noticed that someone is actually, there's little silver plaques they came and have nailed to all the trees. The London plane, the sycamore maples there, they were planted in the 50s by the town. And they're all on private property. And I believe, I'm gonna say, most of them are in the setbacks. For the 10-foot setback from the road there. Back in those days, there wasn't any setback, but still. They're in what's now the setbacks. But they're now, I've noticed around town, they are putting silver discs. Someone on the tree
Yeah.
advisory committee is the head of this, because we're getting a little out of our purview unless
Yeah.
they block it something.
I think
But-
Dale is out putting those, sorry to interrupt. I
Definitely.
don't even know how to raise my hand. in
Good.
this.
Is it Dale Gary?
Yeah,
Okay.
No, this is good, though.
But
This is
also
sort of
the
a
town's got-
cross
But the
conversation.
town's got to also follow up and taking care of those trees, because I can tell you for a fact, I took care of one tree for 20 years and
Yeah.
I never touched it. And
You're gonna back invoice us?
now I can't do it, huh? And now I can't do it. Because now it's plaque. If I want to cut the limb off, I can't.
Anything else to come before the committee? And if not, the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, third.
So a roll call. That was by Snooky Lee and seconded by
Bill Snooky moved, who seconded?
Alan.
Me. Oh, you're over there.
Okay,
Look at the screen.
Alan Reinhardt. Aye. Lisa Apperstein,
Aye.
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Matt
All
Lowell,
right.
Nelson Eldridge,
Yeah.
Ed Gillum,
Hi,
Chair says aye. All right, everybody, thank you so much.
you need a gavel.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you,
I think
Will.
you
for
need a
being
gavel.
here.
You
thanks
need
for
a gavel.
having me.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm gonna end the recording.
Rick, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Who wrote this project compliance statement?
I'm
Oh.
not, I think the attorney for the applicant, I'm not certain,
Okay.
but I think the last paragraphs where he's on number 2.
Well, because I see there's some in print,